sweetheart." "Why did you come by taxi?" Grandpa asked. "What happened to the Audi we gave you for your birthday?" Before I could answer, Mom smiled. "That Audi belongs to her sister now. Brielle needed it more." Grandpa went quiet, then looked at his attorney. "Did you sign it over? I never signed anything." The room changed. My sister stopped smiling. My mother reached for her water. Grandpa leaned forward. "Who signed that Audi over to her?" No one answered. Then Brielle's husband whispered, "Wait, she told me the Audi was already gone." It was. They had not simply taken my car. They had traded it for something twice as expensive, and the forged signature was already sitting inside a lender's file. My name is Tessa Hale, and by 29, I had learned that being the dependable daughter usually meant everyone assumed I could absorb one more loss. I worked as an assistant project manager for Larkin Commercial Builders outside Philadelphia. My days were spent moving between job sites, checking schedules, meeting subcontractors, and carrying a laptop, safety gear, and enough paperwork to fill the trunk of my old sedan. That car was 12 years old. The air conditioning had failed twice. The engine light came on whenever I drove farther than 40 miles, and once it died on the shoulder before a hospital renovation meeting. I still never asked my family for a replacement. My grandparents, Walter and June Hale, noticed anyway. For my 29th birthday, they handed me the keys to a certified pre-owned Audi Q5. It was dark blue, practical enough for work, and completely paid off. Grandpa had the title placed in my name alone. His attorney, Miriam Sloan, checked every document and kept a copy confirming the Audi was a completed gift, not a family vehicle anyone could reclaim or redistribute. Grandpa said, "You've spent years making sure everyone else gets where they need to go. It's time you had something that gets you there safely." For once, something had been chosen for me. That mattered because my mother, Denise, had spent most of my life explaining why my older sister Brielle deserved more when I needed help with tuition. Mom said I could borrow because Brielle only got one wedding. When my old car broke down, Brielle needed Mom's SUV for a real estate photo shoot. Whenever I objected, Mom repeated the same sentence, "Tessa will be fine." 2 years earlier, Grandpa and Grandma had already given Brielle $45,000 to help launch her luxury real estate business and cover childcare. The Audi cost almost exactly the same. Grandma called it equal support. Mom called Brielle's money an investment in her children and my car a luxury for a single woman. I should have understood that she did not see the Audi as mine. 2 months after my birthday, work sent me to Denver for 5 weeks. Before I left, I gave Mom a spare key to my apartment so she could collect mail and water my plants. I thought I was giving her access to my home. I did not know she was waiting for access to my title. 3 weeks into the Denver assignment, Mom texted me during a site meeting. Audi called about a software update. "I can drop it off while you're away." I answered without thinking twice. "Okay, just for the service appointment. The spare key is in my desk drawer." That was the only permission I gave her. The next afternoon, she entered my apartment, took the key, and opened the file box where I kept the original title, insurance papers, and a photocopy of my driver's license. The Audi never went to the service department. Instead, Mom took the title to Benton Tag and Title Services, where her friend Carla worked as a notary. On May 18th, Carla certified that I had appeared in person and signed the Audi over to Brielle. At 6:42 that morning, my badge had opened the gate at a hospital job site in Denver. At 2 that afternoon, I was visible on a recorded project call. I had hotel receipts, timesheets, flight records, and more than a dozen people who could prove I was 1,400 miles away. None of that stopped the paperwork from moving. 9 days later, the Q5 was titled in Brielle's name. 4 days after that, she drove it to Ridgeway Audi. The dealership valued my car at $40,900 and used it as the trade-in on a $92,400 Audi Q8. Mom co-signed because Brielle's commission income and credit card debt made the financing difficult. So much for needing a safe family car. My sister had wanted a luxury down payment. When I returned to Pennsylvania, I asked Mom for my keys. "The dealer is waiting on a part," she said. The next day, It became a software delay, then a registration problem. She told me to use ride shares for a few days and promised she would reimburse me. She never did. I spent the next week moving between job sites and taxis, carrying a hard hat and laptop in my lap while my mother kept inventing reasons my own car could not come home. I was angry, but I still believed the Audi existed somewhere behind a service bay. 3 days later, a taxi dropped me outside Grandpa's 80th birthday dinner. What I did not see was Brielle parking her new Q8 around the corner so Grandpa would not ask where it came from. Grandpa saw the taxi pull away before I reached the private dining room. "Sweetheart, why did you come by taxi?" he asked. "What happened to the Audi we gave you for your birthday?" I opened my mouth. Mom answered first. "That Audi belongs to her sister now. Brielle needed it more." Grandpa went quiet, then looked at his attorney. Miriam Sloan had been sitting beside Grandma with a folder from an estate meeting earlier that afternoon. She stopped turning the stem of her wine glass. Grandpa looked back at me. "Did you sign the Audi over?" "I never signed anything." The room changed. Grandma set down her fork. Brielle already received her share. Mom waved that away. That money went into her business. This was about a safe family car. "It was my car," I said. "It was a family decision. A family decision does not replace the owner's signature." Brielle leaned back in her chair. "You don't understand what it costs to raise 2 children, and having children does not transfer ownership of my property." Mason turned toward her. "You told me Tessa gave it to you." Brielle glanced at Mom. "Mom said she would handle her." Mason's expression hardened. Grandpa asked, "Where is the Q5 now?" No one answered. Grandma repeated the question. Brielle tightened her hand around the key fob beneath the table. "I traded it." For a second, I thought I had heard her wrong. "You sold my car." "It was a trade-in," she said. "I needed something bigger." Mason stared at the key in her hand. "The Q8. Brielle nodded. The Q5 had not become transportation for her children. It had become $40,900 toward a vehicle worth more than $92,000. I looked at Mom. "You didn't give my sister a safer car. You converted my car into her down payment." "Tessa, you can always buy another car." Then she should have bought her own. Miriam stood. "No one says another word about the transaction until we preserve the records." She asked whether I had ever signed a title, dealer form, or gift affidavit. No. She made one call, then opened a scanned title transfer on her tablet. My name appeared on the seller line. The signature looked close enough to pass at a glance. The notary date was May 18th. I pulled up my work calendar. That morning, I badged into a Denver hospital site at 6:42. Miriam looked directly at Mom. "This is no longer about who needed the car more. Someone notarized Tessa's signature while she was 1,400 miles away." Then Mason whispered, "Brielle told me the trade-in was already cleared before Tessa came home." And I finally understood the lie had started long before the taxi ride. After dinner, Mason took the children home. I went with Grandpa, Grandma, and Miriam to her office upstairs. No one touched the birthday cake. No one mentioned presents. Miriam opened the purchase file first. The sales agreement listed me as the sole owner. The Audi had no lien. Grandpa had paid the dealer in full, and an email he sent that day said, "Title it solely to Tessa. Once delivered, neither Denise nor I should have control over it." Mom had been copied. She knew. I said. Miriam nodded. She knew exactly what she did not own. I called my insurance company. A representative told me the Q5 policy had been canceled after someone reported that I had gifted the vehicle within the family. The request included my driver's license number, policy information, and correct mailing address. All of it had come from the file box in my apartment. Then Ridgeway Audi returned Miriam's call. The dealership confirmed that Brielle had used the Q5 as a $40,900 trade-in toward the Q8. She had signed a statement saying the prior owner transferred it voluntarily. The Q8 had been delivered under conditional financing. More importantly, the Q5 had not yet gone to auction. It was still on the dealer's property. "Tell them not to move it," I said. Miriam sent a preservation notice before the call ended. She required the dealer to retain the Q5 security footage, identification records, title scans, financing documents, and every email connected to the transaction. Then we built the timeline proving I was in Denver, my boarding pass, hotel receipts, job site badge records, timesheets, a recorded project meeting, an email from the superintendent confirming I had been on site all day, May 18th. Grandpa looked at the evidence. Need is not a signature. My phone rang. It was Mom. Tessa, please stop this before you ruin Brielle's financing. You used my car to create her financing. She has 2 children. She needed the Audi more. Needing something does not make it yours. You are really going to report your own family over a vehicle. You forged my name and called it generosity. Brielle joined the call. You can always buy another car. Then you should have bought your own. You're destroying my finances. You built those finances with my property. She started crying and said I was punishing her children. Grandma leaned toward the phone. Being a mother does not turn someone else's property into a family resource. Miriam ended the call. 10 minutes later, Mason sent us screenshots from Brielle's phone. One message from Brielle read, "Once the Q5 is traded, Tessa can't make us give it back," Mom had replied. She'll be angry, but Grandpa won't let her hurt the kids over a car. That ended any argument that this had been a misunderstanding. They knew I had not agreed. They were counting on shame to become consent after the fact. Miriam notified the Q8 lender that the down payment came from disputed property. She contacted the title office, my insurer, and the tag service. She instructed Carla Benton to preserve her notary journal and identification records. I filed a title fraud report. Then I froze my credit, changed my apartment locks, removed Mom's permission to collect my mail, and moved every original document into a safe deposit box. Grandpa offered to buy me another Audi that night. No, I said. Replacing it would turn what they did into a misunderstanding. He studied me, then nodded. I gave you a car. I did not give them permission to redistribute my gifts. By midnight, Ridgeway Audi confirmed the Q5 had been locked inside a secured holding area. The following morning, the Q8 lender gave Brielle 48 hours to replace the entire $40,900 down payment or return the vehicle. She did not have the money. But that was not the call that surprised me most. The title office had found Carla's notary entry. According to her own log, she claimed she had checked my identification in person, and the signature beside that claim was not mine either. Brielle returned the Q8 the next afternoon. Ridgeway Audi did not accuse her of stealing it. The dealership simply refused to complete a financing package built on a trade-in with a disputed title. Without $40,900 to replace the equity from my Q5, she had no down payment. The Q8 disappeared from her driveway before sunset. My car remained locked inside the dealer's secured lot while Miriam worked through the title correction. Ridgeway provided security footage showing Mom and Brielle arriving together, copies of the identification they used, and the statement Brielle signed claiming I had transferred the Audi voluntarily. Carla's notary journal caused the next problem. She had written that I appeared before her on May 18th, presented identification, and signed in her presence. The identification number matched the photocopy Mom had taken from my apartment, but Carla's office camera showed no sign of me. It showed Mom handing her the folder. Carla's commission was suspended while the state investigated, and Benton Tag and Title lost permission to process vehicle transfers during the review. I did not decide her punishment. I only supplied the records proving she had certified a person who was 1,400 miles away. 3 weeks later, the title office restored the Q5 to my name. The dealership released it after an independent inspection. Brielle had added 1,300 miles. One wheel was scraped. There were sticky fingerprints across the rear seats, and someone had spilled coffee near the center console. None of that was the real damage. Mom stood beside Brielle in Miriam's conference room when the settlement was presented. They were responsible for $12,500 in direct costs. My taxis and rental cars, legal and title fees, the inspection, detailing, and wheel repair. Brielle's payment plan would last 18 months. Mom stared at the number. You got the car back. The car came back, I said. My trust did not. She folded her arms. You used my being single as permission to take from me. Then called it motherhood. Brielle looked exhausted without the Q8 key in her hand. My children needed reliable transportation. You had an Explorer that still ran. It needed repairs. Then repair it. Needing something does not make it yours. Mason had already pulled their credit reports and discovered $38,000 in card debt Brielle had hidden from him. He required full financial disclosure and moved into his brother's house for several weeks while they began counseling. He apologized to me once. I should have asked you directly. Yes, I said, you should have. Grandpa removed Mom from every financial role she held for him and Grandma. Her power of attorney was revoked. She lost access to the family document safe, and their trusts were transferred to an independent corporate trustee. He did not cut off Brielle's children. The children did not sign anything. He said, that distinction mattered. Mom called the changes cruel. Grandpa answered, I gave Tessa a car. I did not give you permission to redistribute my gifts. When he offered to replace the Q5 with a new model, I refused again. I'm not replacing evidence with another gift. I kept the car. After the wheel was repaired and the interior cleaned, I drove it back to work, the first time I parked at a job site. I sat behind the wheel longer than necessary. The Audi no longer felt untouched, but it felt mine. Carla's case continued through the proper channels. Mom and Brielle were not allowed to contact the dealer, insurer, or title office on my behalf. Every settlement payment went through Miriam. I changed my locks, kept my documents in a safe deposit box, and ended every shared insurance or mailing arrangement. Months later, I drove the Q5 to Grandpa's house. Mom saw it through the window. At least everything is back where it belongs, she said. I slipped the keys into my pocket. The car is? I answered. The relationships aren't. And for the first time, no one told me I would be fine. Mom said, you have your Audi back. What more do you want? Nothing from you, I said. That is the boundary. Brielle crossed her arms. So you're cutting us off over a car, no? Over the forged signature, the lies, and the belief that my life mattered less because I was single. Grandpa looked at me. Are you sure I slipped the keys into my pocket? Yes. They returned the vehicle. They did not return the trust. Then I walked out before anyone could rename theft as family. Would you have reported them or accepted a replacement car to keep the peace comment below? Subscribe and stay for more family betrayals, hidden money, and clean revenge stories.